corner of the house, extending approximately 13 feet west, meeting the property line, and extending 132 feet south along the property line. You can see here from the petitioner's site plan, the photo has been rotated so that north is over here. The structure is here, and the fence would go right along here. The standards for maximum height in the UDO state that forward front of the building wall of the primary structure, fences and walls shall not exceed 4 feet in height. The front building wall is defined as the building elevation which fronts on a public street. And as this structure is located on a corner, this building has frontages along both South Highland and East 2nd Street, while the functional front of the house is along East 2nd. As previously mentioned, this is located in the Elm Heights Historic District. The petitioner was required to receive a certificate of appropriateness from the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission, which was acquired in March, and the following work was approved to remove the evergreen trees along South Highland Avenue and construct a 6-foot wooden fence along the back of the property and along Highland Avenue, 8 feet from the rear of the house. The BZA has on occasion approved fence height variances when the following instances are true. The property is at a corner, the fence would be along a classified street, when the fence does not block the functional front of the house and the fence does not loom over the street by use of a setback or lattice top above 4 feet. In this instance, the proposed fence is not along a classified street. This fence is located catty-corner from the petitioner's site and received approval from the BZA in 2012 after it was originally recommended for denial by staff. Peculiar condition was found on the small lot size, existing grandfathered fence section, and the fact that it was a corner lot and the side street was along 2nd as opposed to Highland, which has a higher level of traffic. Here are some existing photos. This is the site itself. Looking at along, if you're located on East 2nd, looking at the house, the proposed fence would be along this side of the street. There are currently some existing landscaping shrubs and trees that kind of provide some privacy in the petitioner's backyard. And this is the view looking down South Highland. So the fence would be right along here. And as stated before, there are no sidewalks on either side of the street. So just kind of to review what exactly is permitted and proposed. The petitioner has proposed a fence that would extend along South Highland 6 feet here. Permitted by the UDO would be to place a 6-foot fence along in line with the house as opposed to extending beyond the facade. The petitioner would also be allowed to put a 4-foot fence in the same location as proposed. And another alternate would be to use plantings for privacy as it currently is today. There are 3 criteria for variances. The first is the use and value of the area adjacent to the property would not be affected. Staff did find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property would be impacted as it would change the existing landscaping and visibility along a significant portion of the lot. The approval would not be injurious to the health and general welfare of the community. There is no sidewalk on either side of Highland Street, which would create a greater need to protect pedestrian safety. And lastly, the strict application of the terms of the UDO result in practical difficulties unique to the property in question. The department finds that there are no peculiar conditions on this property. While the property in question is a corner lot, this is not a peculiar condition as there are many corner lots throughout the city facing the same issue. In addition, Highland Street, the street that is the non-functional side of the house, is not a classified street with heavy traffic. The only practical difficulty on the site is protecting the existing mature walnut tree located along South Highland Street. However, the UDO does not prohibit a fence in this location, and the tree could still exist with a 4-foot fence as permitted by the UDO. Staff recommends denial of the variance.
Step up to the podium, please. Can you please state your name?
Alice Ann Donway.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You have up to 20 minutes to present your case.
Okay. Well, okay. If you
We're going to
look
have
at-
trouble hearing you without,
you-
thank you.
If you look at the survey of the property, can you bring that up? And you see that putting the fence where I'm allowed to, according to the regulations, would essentially reduce the effective size of the yard by a fairly large percentage. And the tree, the walnut tree, is in such a position that the fence would have to go about 2 feet to the east of the tree, which is 4 feet in diameter. And in that position, if they have to put any posts, it could damage the roots, digging, drilling in the ground like that, which might be fatal for the tree. Really not good for it. Plus, it would deprive the backyard of an essential part of the landscaping, which I think must be very old since the tree is 4 feet in diameter. And I don't know, you didn't take any pictures of the landscaping in the backyard, did you?
I did not go into the backyard, just from the street.
Okay, I brought a few along. I don't know if you'll be able to see. These pictures are not very good because I used the only camera we had, and the printer is black and white, not color, so you don't get a really good effect. But I'll show you the one which shows that in addition to the, I need that there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can actually put your pictures up on the screen too.
Oh, okay, all right, just 1 second. Let me get the one that I need.
Oh,
Too many pictures.
Is it on dot plan?
Okay, this is the one. Okay, you can see that 2 feet approximately from the base of the tree would be between the stone edging to the planting bed and the tree. And it would be about 2/3 of the way to the stone edge there. And that point is about 2 feet lower than the point where the trees are lined up, which is approximately where where they're planted is approximately where the fence would be. So essentially, putting a 6-foot fence at the position this side of the tree would do no good as far as getting any privacy, because it would still have an effective height of 4 feet compared to a 6-foot fence on the, the property line. So it doesn't do any good to use a 4-foot fence there. There's no reason to put one there. And in addition to that, that's a walnut tree, and walnut trees are notorious for being very difficult to grow things under. And I provided a table, which I made, that had the, one second, here it is. There's 2 pages to it, so I don't know how you do that, but anyway, get an idea. There are 10 hedge plants that I've listed, and they're common hedge plants that people grow here. And of the ones that are there, 4 of them cannot grow under walnut trees. And 2 of them will not grow under a shade tree. They need more sun than that. And then I have to be able to just read what I wrote.
Oh, okay.
So, you have a copy of this that you gave them, I think. So if you could get one
There
of
should be a copy in the packet.
The 2 types of holly that are listed on the front page, page 1, they're not listed as tolerant of black walnut juglone, but it wouldn't make any difference because they're occasionally severely damaged by deer, which is another problem in the backyard. A lot of the plants get eaten. And so I wouldn't want to plant those. Plus, people walk their dogs along Highland and they just let them pee on shrubbery and everything like that. So that wouldn't work very well. So that eliminates 8 of the 10. And of those that are left, the boxwood is not listed as black walnut juglone tolerant, but I have read some people replying to, questions on the internet that they've had good luck with boxwood under walnut trees. So the only 2 problems with boxwood are that it grows very slowly. According to the person at May's Nursery that sells the plants, he said that they only grow under a tree about 3 inches a year. And the tallest boxwood they sell, of the type that gets tall and not as wide, is 30 inches. So in 10 years, the hedge would only be about 5 feet tall. And I'm elderly, and I might not live to see it grow that high even. So, and it might get injured by dogs and stuff like that. But anyway, it also has many diseases and pests. So it's not a sure thing. And then the last one is the one I have, which is the Canadian hemlock. And here's a picture of how the hemlocks are doing under the big walnut tree. The 2 to the left of the tree are in very bad condition. The, I don't know what happened to them unless it's the juglone, but when you get to the 3rd one, it's a little better, and it gets better as you go towards the house. And, I don't know if new ones would grow well there or not, But the ones that are there already were not pruned every year as they need to be if they're going to be a dense hedge that will do the proper screening. And so really keeping the ones that are there is not a solution. And replanting is not a sure thing either, because the ones that are there are not doing well, the ones that are under the tree or closest to the tree. And then, let's see, a lot of poison ivy, Virginia creeper, and euonymus ground cover, which also vines, have grown up their trunks. And because the branches of the trees droop very low, it is very hard to weed under the, these Canadian hemlocks with the ground cover there and with the limbs drooping onto the ground cover. So also it's very expensive to maintain because it would have to be pruned every year, and they can't let it get past a certain height, or even they would, they just become exorbitant. And it's not easy to afford that kind of pruning on, Social Security and a pension. So anyway, it doesn't seem like a great solution. You can see a little more of how much the yard slopes from this picture. This is taken at the back southwest corner of the yard. In other words, if you went straight back from the walnut tree, that's where it would have been taken from. Let's see, no, this is at the corner, like the back property corner, looking down into the yard. And that's the, what do you call it? Where you put the dead plant matter to compost pile, which also needs to be screened and has nothing screening it now. And let's see. So anyway, the hedge that's there can't be made to look decent. It's too late. They have to be trained from the beginning. And then, let me see, where's the other problems? I need my reading glasses.
You have just under 8 minutes left.
What is that?
You just have just under 8 minutes left.
Okay, I'm almost done. I don't know whether, I'll say this, I know that it's been rejected already, the possibility of a fence, but I did submit pictures of fences that are currently being used in Elm Heights Historic District for, as being a type that I would like to have. And they were approved by the, what do you call it? Who approves that, the fence?
The
style?
HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission.
Yeah, they've approved it. And I contend that the need for the use variance arises from all those conditions, the juglone, which makes it hard for them to grow, and the slope of the yard, so that a fence of enough height would be able to do the screening without losing 25 or 30% of the backyard, and also without disrupting and completely ruining the landscaping, which is like it's almost like a circle in the backyard or a rectangle with corners that are rounded and with all kinds of wild and cultivated plants in there. And it's just beautiful. And to ruin it like that just seems like, you know, it's not a good idea. And I wouldn't like to do it. So anyway, I want it to be beautiful and I want it to function too. I feel like these kind of restrictions in this case are prejudiced against people who own corner lots because they, you know, they can't do the things that people in between can, and so their property values would not be as high as they would be otherwise if they could. And when they go to sell their house, they have a more difficult time selling their house, I would imagine. Because who wants to have a backyard that's on complete view from the, you know, from the street? So, which it would be, when, if I had, I mean, the hemlocks that are close to the house are too large and I can't let them get any bigger or the city wouldn't let me take them down. And they're almost touching the house. I can show you one picture of that, and then that's it. I can't. Here's one.
You have under 5 minutes left.
Okay, this is another one, which shows how close it comes to the house. And as it gets bigger, more and more will, you know, do that. So anyway, that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. That will be for the board to decide here shortly, so you can have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for staff and/or petitioner by the board? Anyone?
For staff, please. Can you just please clarify what it means for the Historic Preservation Commission to approve something that's not the code? Or what is that language? And it's a little confusing to me when it says only 8 feet from the rear of the house. When they're describing the 6-foot fence, where they say that is appropriate along the rear property line?
Nope.
And along Highland, only 8 feet from the rear of the house. I don't understand spatially what that means.
I think I understand it. I'm just waiting for us to get the diagram back up.
Okay.
Shut the whole computer. Oh.
Just stop the PowerPoint there.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry.
Please tell me Windows boot up faster now.
How do I stop the presentation?
X.
Pardon me?
So the 8-foot portion that the
Oh, mine
HBC was discussing was from the far end of the house up. So at the furthest most southwest corner of the house, the fence would start 8 feet in front of that. So it does enclose like a tiny portion of the actual, it'll come off of 8 feet off of the wall. Does that?
Could you just say that? 8 feet off of the wall
Well,
of the house?
So it would be 8 feet along the house facade.
Can you show me on this what she means?
I think she's
Or this eight, this eight, I think.
So this is, this here is the 8 feet of the house that the HPC was discussing,
That they said,
that they approved, yes. And so and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Historic Preservation Commission doesn't look at if it meets code rather than if it fits in with the neighborhood and if it affects a contributing historic structure.
which this is, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay, okay. And just another follow-up question. So there's nothing to preclude the homeowner for doing a stretch of 6-foot-high fence off the corner of their house, straight to the south, and then jogging the fence down to get around the tree at 4 feet. So there could be a combination so that up closer to the house, they could have more privacy, probably where they sit and where the rear deck is. And then and to allow for the inclusion of that large tree in the backyard, that could be accomplished with a 4-foot-high fence that could go out to their property line along the west and run to the southwest corner. There's nothing in the
Yes.
code that would not preclude that.
No.
It's a double
That would
negative,
be a
but-
decision up to you, and then the COA would be amended. But yes, I believe what you're saying is true.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand that there is a way, working with the code, to achieve some level of privacy and include the tree within the yard and meet a lot of the goals that the homeowner has while still meeting the code. And the spirit of why the regulation is what it is, so that we don't have walls of fences along roadways in our neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I understand that the petitioner showed a design of a fence to the Historical Commission?
Yes, so they were in the packet, and I believe the two are similar to this
With the
style fence with the
slats at the
4-foot
top.
and the lattice, or just a regular
Lattice, okay.
slat fence.
Okay.
The petitioner, I asked her earlier today, and she said that she had not decided in between the two.
Okay.
Can you go back to page 11?
Were you done with your questions? I'm sorry.
Yes.
She looked like-
Go to, sorry, which one?
Page 11, you were just there. I just, that right
this-
there. So on the left side of the photograph, that street, I just want to clarify, that's Highland?
This is Highland, correct?
And there's no sidewalk on
second.
either side of the street, so the only people that are passing by there would be in a car?
I mean, people would be walking, but they would be walking in the
In the street?
roadway.
In the street,
Yes.
okay.
Any other questions? See, yes.
Follow-up to I just want to understand, so the proposed fence type is one that has a lattice on top, or one that is solid board to the top?
That is correct.
Okay, so
And
we
both
don't
of those-
have, so there's not one proposed fence type? Okay,
Both of those were approved by the Historic Preservation Commission.
But both are in violation of the code, but both
Yes.
are
Both would
not
require
accepted under.
At 6 feet, yes.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, if the petitioner has approximately 4 minutes and 20 seconds left, if you would like to have any additional comments.
The idea of putting a 4-foot fence in the area where the tree is, in order to include the tree, really wouldn't work artistically for the landscape of the yard. It just would not work, and I wouldn't do that to the landscape. You wouldn't even be able to see the tree from inside the house, like in the breakfast nook. And there's a window on the back of the house, front in the nook, and I sit where I can see the whole tree and all the wildlife that, you know, is there. It also wouldn't keep out the deer. They would hop over that 4-foot fence in a second. So, you know, I'd like to, you know, prevent the deer from doing that. Also, the house sits up fairly high, even though the backyard is low, and you can see a lot of the back of the house when you're driving by now. So, you know, you can see the whole front of the house and like most of the side of the house. The city allows the fence to go up to halfway to the front of the house. I'm not even asking that, just the part that encloses the area where the breakfast nook is, so that traffic's not driving by when we're eating. I mean, we can't see the traffic anyway if we have the fence. So, anyway, that's the only comment I have.
Thank you. Seeing none, back to the board for action.
I'm inclined to approve this. I understand the special nature of the backyard, and I think it seems appropriate.
Well, we need a motion for anything, action by the board.
I feel a little divided about this, I'll have to be honest, because when we have gone ahead and approved these variances, it has been very specific to busy streets, being adjacent to busy streets, either for pedestrian traffic or automobile traffic. And this situation does not have either. I have to say that you're in a city, you bought a house on a corner lot. This part of being in this neighborhood, it seems, in the character of this neighborhood, is that these houses are close together and some of them are on view. I think there are some mitigating approaches to help with the privacy issue. Being somebody who lives in the neighborhood, who deals with deer and knows people who do have high fences, deer jump 6-foot fences, and the city's struggled with the deer issue and keeping them out, so I don't think that that's necessarily a remedy. But what I understand the desire for some privacy, and I think that's a completely reasonable thing, and there are several tools, and fences are one of them to try and get there, and I know that you have some challenges. But as a neighbor and somebody who walks this neighborhood a lot, I personally have an issue and understand why we have the regulation that we do, so that we don't get tall fences along roadways unless there's very specific reasons. So for me, I don't feel like this variance meets the level of hardship that the property can't be used.
In order to facilitate board discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion for denial of V0917.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Additional comments?
My comments on this are that the homeowner still is allowed to build a 4-foot fence, which provides some privacy. I agree that it's in the city. I agree that these are grouped closely together in this neighborhood. I think that despite the discussion of potential landscape in order to bring the height of obfuscation to the street above 4 feet, and actually much higher than 6. I don't think that that's been explored fully, that there are options, it's done, and people do it. And that's going to look a lot different than having a 6-foot fence. I think that there was some misunderstanding about what Barry was saying, which is you can take the 6-foot fence off the back of the house to a point and then go back out to the street at 4 feet and continue 4 feet, which gives you some added privacy, especially in the area, and it would not obstruct your view of the tree. So I do think that there are enough factors here that wouldn't allow for that type of variance.
Any comments? And I would just like to comment that I have been on this board for a very long time, and this is not personal. We have taken the position as a community that tall fences are not inviting, and that tall fences isolate people. And this board has consistently recommended denial on these cases, and I voted on denial on every single one of them. So we are sensitive to what's happening for you. However, we have to think of the community as a whole living in an urban area. Carmen?
Yes. Clapper,
Yes.
Stewart Williams,
Yes.
Aquila,
Yes.
Throckmorton,
Yes.
Petition is denied. Thank you. And we are adjourned.